be all the way through by the time we finish our dedication, I hope. I want to thank all of you for being here, particularly the people who have put their backs and arms and legs into the process of cleaning out all the blackberries and restoring our hillsides to a condition where we can actually see the plants that we planted. I'm Larry Bauman, I'm the city manager, and my principal job is to introduce the mayor. The producer here for
Good job, Larry.
Yeah, the competition.
Good job taking your money.
That was timing provided by Ann Stanton.
Being upstage.
I'll get another flock as soon as we introduce the mayor. But before I introduce the mayor, I wanted to especially thank Ann Stanton, whose 13 years in dedication to this project has really paid off at this final stage and final dedication of the plaques. And I wanted to thank her for the hard work, creativity, and just persistence in getting this project done. Awesome amount of work, and it's going to be a lasting legacy for our community as a result. This really is a community project, and one that the whole community has helped to support over the number of years that we've worked on this. And I want to thank everyone who's contributed to this. But enough about that at this point, and I want to introduce our mayor, Karen Guzak, who's going to really start leading off our program.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Bell. I feel very privileged to be here to help dedicate these plaques at this wonderful riverfront trail. The river was the highway of this city long before there were cars or people that of our generation here. So the river was the highway for the native tribes, the Snohomish tribes, who took their canoes as far as Alaska. Then the steamships came to the river, and then finally the trains. And here we are today, and we are here today thanks actually to one of the major floods who wiped out a part of this river. Made us able to get some federal funds to build this incredible trail that we have here now. And again, I thank Ann Stanton, who was project lead for this for such a wonderful time. She's also the designer of these amazing plaques that we have here. 7 plaques that denote the history of this river and the history of our city, starting from before written history to the time of the glaciers, starting here, and then the plaques go along here, following this history of our city. Now this crease here, this is where the flood was from 1995. This was the flood level that wiped out much of the riverbank that allowed us then to apply for these $2.5 million of federal funds. So, you know, sometimes from disaster comes renewal, and here we are at this time of renewal. So, we're going to be walking along the trail this way to look at the plaques. And our local historian, there he is, and Andy's next, and Andy, thank you very much, Andy. Andy is going to come forward, so Andy, we're going to come forward and talk to us. Andy, yeah, you have set up the toll booth for all the bike riders in town.
It's been really good, and they use this trail a lot. It's the future for a lot of people, a lot of use, for tourists, for the locals. You know, the river started the town, and to not have this be something that we can cherish and something that we can appreciate for a long time, and you know, and maintain it and make it sort of like the gem, sort of like a highlight for the town it would be a crime not to do it. So this is something that I see as a starting point. It could be so much better than how it is, but this is really a great start. And you know, working together with the volunteers, how much we got done in just a couple hours.
Yeah!
Awesome.
You know, it was great. Right?
Well, some of us were here a little more than a couple of hours.
So, and I am a member of HDS Historic Downtown Snohomish. It's an organization that that gets paid by the merchants on First Street, and our purpose is to help revitalize the downtown economy and its prosperity. But this is a key part of it, and in our meetings we're always talking about this trail and how important it is to it, and trying to allocate future projects and funds through our whatever means we have. We want to say really quick that we have a part of the program is a B&O tax that businesses pay. There's a program that allows you, business owners, to essentially divert a portion of all of your B&O money to HDS, and nearly almost at no cost to you. There's a cash flow issue there. But those of you who are interested, it's a great donation. It's hardly cost you anything. Please talk to me. You can talk to Debbie CG. She's the HDS manager there, and it's a great way to get 100,000 plus into our pockets to work on projects like this. And HDS is part of this project as well. So,
I testify. I've done it. This is my second year. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Thank you.
It's a great program. Please talk to me about that. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. So Warner Blake, would you like to come forward? Thank you so much, Andy. The other thing I neglected to say that is this riverfront trail, the stage 2 is going to be the connection of the end of this trail here at Katy Park up through the city, running up behind the library and the senior center, connect up with the end of the Centennial Trail. So that's phase 2 that we hope to have in place by this time next year. So
Wow.
Thank you, Karen. When Karen and I moved here in the early 90s, it was a slope of fallen rocks, and volunteers had put a tar path that was about this wide. Ann remembers it, and I used it every day. It was wonderful, and then until it eroded one day and was a big trick. So this is a great day to have this trail. Of course, we've been using it before we dedicate the plaques. I just want to say one thing about hopefully the plaques will inspire us to continue this up on First Street, a project I've been championing for a couple of years now, to have interpreted signs throughout the town so that you can do a loop, walk, and learn about the city. My other job is to invite you to a walking dedication so that you can read the plaques, and I will meet you at the Ferguson market.
right. Now do we have Virginia Jones?
She's afterwards.
She's afterwards.
going to be late.
Okay, so we're going to
Now we walk.
Okay, now we walk.
Right? With the first disclaimer, or the first important thing we should say is that E.C. Ferguson is not buried here. He's in fact, he and his relatives are up at the GAR. There's a tour next Saturday, 10 o'clock. Details, snohomishthenandnow.org. So, I don't know how many towns can say this, but we have in our town grandsons who are not, they were here.
He's coming.
They're coming.
Cutting blackbirds.
Grandsons of the founder, E.C. Ferguson, built this. Great-grandson. There he is, Gary. Gary Ferguson, where's your brother?
Can't get anybody.
He's coming. E.C. Ferguson, a carpenter from New York City, and an adventurer, ended up here in Snohomish with this cottage that he built in Silicon, took it apart and shipped it up the river. And his partner, Hale Barnes, who was holding the claim for him, put it together. He came up in April 1860, a year after the cottage was sent up, and lived in here and had enough goods with him to start a store. The store didn't start until '64. But in April of, David's come, he's going to help me out here, 1861, Snohomish won the site of the county seat. Ferguson came back with the county records in his vest pocket and set up the courthouse. It was also, he was the first postmaster, or the second. Kate Edison Edson Katy may have been the first one. That's why it was called Katyville for a while. But this is a great day, and because we also have with us today is David Delgard, who back in the 80s when they were giving money out for such things, he got a grant to actually go up and measure the cottage and research it. And so this is based on David Delgard's research on the Ferguson cabin. I told him the sign is in, or the cottage, and he says, he writes back, "Great, I've been waiting 40 years for this." So it's David Delgard, if you don't know, is the history specialist of the Northwest Room, Everett Public Library, and he's my mentor in the history of Snohomish. So to ask him questions. You can also talk to Gary and Bruce, the two great grandsons of E.C. Ferguson, still living in Snohomish. It's a great thing.
Owner of the cottage.
And oh, okay.
Okay.
Since we got
Say a few words.
this actually, Everett Olson, who is no longer with us, but he would love to see this day, because he brought me to this cabin in '93, and he said, "This is the Ferguson cabin," and it was about to fall down, or Ferguson Cottage, and nobody knew what was going to happen until Rebecca Lovelace and her family came along and renovated the property. It's now used as a rental property. So talk to Rebecca too. So we got Rebecca, we got Gary, we got David, and Treat's over here, and I'm supposed to ad-lib more now, and until
The Toledo Tribes representative shows up.
really? We gotta keep
Dave will have
Yeah, maybe Dave.
Dave, you want to say a few words? We got to ad-lib until the Tulalip person shows up. Yeah.
At least 3 minutes. She's not due till 11:20.
Nothing you can't handle, David.
Tell him to come on up.
This is really exciting.
Tell him to come up so we can all hear him.
David, can you join us?
I think we dreamed about this for a long, long time. Awfully nice. And of course also there are logistical problems here, because quite obviously you can't take people right back into people's backyards. The cottage was shifted about 100 feet from its original location, and that puts it in an almost unreachable spot up there without inconveniencing somebody or trespassing 6 or 8 times. So this allows people to walk down and look up, and it's the oldest building in Snohomish County. We should all be looking up to it, right? Anyway, so that's a good angle. And it would have been, of course, this is just in time, like 150 years this March since Ferguson itself came upstream and moved into the house. He sent the house up before it was offloaded off a little steamer right down there in pieces, since Ferg was a trained, highly skilled carpenter. He built a lot of it down in Steilacoom, and they just shipped it up here on a side wheel steamer, and in 1859, and offloaded it. And of course, originally he was right at the mouth of a stream, a creek that winds around back there, and originally came out. Well, I guess it still does. Culverted right, but it still comes out down there. Yeah. And as was the gully that gave early engineers so many problems trying to build streets over the top of this cavernous ravine. But this is an exciting time for your community. I can't really express how much it means to those of us who love not just the history of Snohomish, but the history of the Pacific Northwest, to see you doing this. It's like, I guess we all look at various communities and are excited when we see the people in those communities embrace their own history and preserve it and understand it enough to be able to share it with the rest of us, because it's all really a bigger story than any single community. But the part that your community has to play in that story of early Washington Territory and Washington State is substantial. And not every community that has that kind of heritage comes to terms with it. Heaven knows, if you look back the last 40 or 50 years for Snohomish, those responsibilities and those pressures and those tensions, there is no panacea. If you wake up and discover that you are in the midst of treasures, the responsibilities of trying to deal with that are enormous, and your community has wound up bruised and scarred from the fights that result as a result of having to decide what you want to do, what you need to do. Time and again, Snohomish has managed to find a way to struggle through. It's the example you set with the historic district. that's ironic. The pioneer community is a pioneer in finding ways to save and to call public attention, to interpret and to advocate, to educate, and Snohomish has done that. And this is another step in that. Beautiful step. I hadn't seen these, and they're wonderful. They're beautiful. I'd like to see all of the graphics off of these issued as some kind of a set of prints or something that us carpetbaggers can take away downstream to look at. Beautiful.
We could do that.
Reinterpretation of things that we've had around for a long time. So we see that beautiful engraving of the Nelly and things. It's wonderful to see. But I think that also we need, maybe when we're doing classes about county history, we need to do some classes about recent history of the heroics involved in trying to preserve and educate in regard to local heritage, because especially in the 21st century, it looks like those things are going to butt right up against some real challenges that you're going to need to face. And in the past, Snohomish has a history that it can take pride in trying to grapple with those things. There are no easy, pretty answers to how you save the best of your past and you incorporate it into something that still works for people now. It's about as challenging as a kitchen or bathroom remodel in a 150-year-old house. And your entire community has faced those challenges over and over again. And you haven't always been able to deal with them gracefully or quickly. That's part of the whole lesson. People like Warner, for instance, is a wonderful example of someone who manages to discover that art and history are not forever separated and not allowed to talk to each other. That in Snohomish County especially, we seem to wind up with little groups. That gentleman over there jumped over the boundary, as he brings all the poetry and the art of it and can apply it and can see it when he looks at the story of the place. God, we should all be able to do that. And Warner's a wonderful example of that. And in the amount of time he's been here, he's done enormous things for this community in terms of making it accessible, in terms of sharing it with us carpetbaggers, in terms of being open with the rest of us who were involved in debacles like the theft of the county seat. Sooner or later, if we're lucky, every community will get somebody. But you know, there's not many Warners around. You know, it's like you.
I think your time's up, David.
I have a question. Visiting New York today, how did Mr. Ferguson wind up coming from New York to this country?
Gold Rush. His brother, while Ferg was still an apprentice carpenter, his brother was out in California. As soon as Ferg finished his apprenticeship and could get clear of the responsibilities his family expected of him, he was out here. Chased gold in California, settled in, was a merchant there in the vicinity of the original California gold rush. Moved on up through Oregon. He was chasing gold up in the Fraser River in British Columbia when he used up the last of his resources and had to fall back down to Steilacoom looking for maybe a government job, maybe just some work to do in a real community, and fell in with William Henson Wallace, the future governor of Idaho, and right at the right time, he was a Republican. Remember, Washington Territory, that was all Pierce and Democrats, and Ferg arrived just at the time that Lincoln got in, and so thereby there hangs the tale. The Snohomish was a Republican enclave for well the rest of the 19th century, and Ferg was the guy that controlled politics. Frost and Fowler down in Mukilteo, Democrats, old school, retro. The Democrats were out of there, and the Republicans were in. Ferguson was the king of the county for the rest of the time until Democrats reestablished themselves down at Everett and put up a threat. But New York was Edson Cady was from New York, from upstate New York. Frost and Fowler were both from New York State. Well, those people were looking for opportunities out here on the opposite side of the continent. They had lots of opportunities.
Thank you very much.
Back to you, Ann.
Thank you. Ann has gone down to meet Virginia Jones of the Toledo Tribes. She's arriving a little bit late, and we thought we might want to have a break for refreshments while she's arriving, and then have an opportunity for her to make a brief comment as well. And I think there may also be an opportunity afterwards to have Ann. We've encouraged her to kind of do a little interpretive walk on the actual plaques themselves, about how they were developed, what their meaning is in terms of the chronology of the period that we're focusing on here. So while we're getting all of that ready, feel free to take advantage of our donated refreshments from Java Inn, Treats by Anne Marie, and Fred's Rivertown Ale House.
The fish together, it was just, I mean, the rivers were like our highways, so it's really a blessing that some of our history is going into a permanent place here and that we're being honored. All of the people from here are being honored. I really want to thank you. So, you would see.
Thank you. We're honored to have you here. The Snohomish Parks Foundation, whose efforts led to the work party that has helped restore some of our bank here. And I think Leah wants to talk about the work of the Parks Foundation and what lies ahead.
Thank you. We have Parks Foundation members here, so raise your hand. Raise your hand. We have Parks Board members here. Thank you so much for coming. The Parks Foundation works to fundraise and liaise with the community and with the city to find the best way that we can enhance our local parks. So, sorry, I was like, am I going to talk or not? So now I'm not sure what I'm going to say. So,
We're not worried. No, you can.
now I can step up to the plate. So I'm wrapping my mind around it. Anyway, I'd like you all to come a little closer if you would. Melody, Warner, Derek, Tom, Jerry, whoever you are in the shades, come a little closer. And I would like, you know, we hear a lot about community and making a difference. So I would like everyone to look to your left and say, thank you.
Thank you.
Look to your right. Look to your right and say thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Because you know what? This is it. We're community. We're doing it. We're making a difference. And how wonderful is that? And so thank you. We're the future. This is the future. Planting a plant, which is what we just did. We planted, and how many plants? Several thousand.
Oh, wow.
I broke a nail. This planting is the ultimate optimistic act. When you put something in the ground, you expect that it's going to grow. So you have optimism for the future. That's what we really need these days, don't you think? I mean, I'm so tired of hearing all the negative stuff and everything that's going on. I want to hear something about the future. And every time I put a plant in the ground, I would first curse that I broke a nail, and then I would think, wow, I'm making a little act of faith for the future. So that's what I want to celebrate today. Acts of faith for the future. And I had something really interesting to say, and I appear to have forgotten it. But
You're doing good so far.
thank you. So thank you to all you volunteers. I see that some of you didn't actually get dirty, but I'm marking your faces, and the next time I really want you to show up and get dirty and get muddy, especially you, Leanne.
I put it in my time.
This is, since the foundation was founded in 2005, this is maybe our, 8th or 9th big organized planting event. There will be more of them. I invite you to visit our website, snohomishparks.org, to see what we're up to, what we're planning for the future.
And we're on Facebook.
And we're on Facebook. And we're always looking for more people to help us be more optimistic for the future and to guide our way into the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you.